is our final My Calling Sunday of this academic year, as I mentioned in the announcements. And I was very pleased that Jamie said that she was willing to take this last Sunday, and that it's worked out. We thought we might need a special congregational meeting, but we didn't need that, so it's worked out for you to be able to go today. And I almost said, and then I forgot, that the flowers on the altar were for the miracle baby, who's celebrating her first birthday soon. And so there are some aspects of Jamie's calling that we might suspect are a little different than many other nurses at United Hospital. And so we're anxious to hear whatever you have to share with us, and we're all yours for the next 50 minutes. Good. Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah. So, I realized that I was always kind of a PowerPoint gal, but I realized that when you have like a 15-year-old computer and 2 kids, it's really hard to do that. So, I have a book that Luann actually suggested. It just has pictures from when I was little and a little bit in between. So, and then a couple other ones with Charlotte and her girls. So I didn't really know how to start this off, but my childhood, I think I'll start off with, just quick. I was born in St. Paul. I was raised in Maplewood. My dad and mom, they separated just before I was 1, so they were right at my 2 daughters' ages. That's kind of when my parents separated. And my dad met another woman named Diane, and they were married for, I think, 5 or 6 years. Diane introduced me to gymnastics at age 4, which has been a huge, stable part of my life. And she also had us baptized at a Lutheran church when we were 6, or when I was 6. The pictures are in there. And my mom moved to California to be with her parents. They were both on hospice for cancer. And she ended up staying out there for a while. She had my brother, Rick, and my Rick had my nephew, William. And then my dad and Diane, they had Joe, my other brother. And then they separated in middle school, or when I was in middle school. And then Diane met Mandy and had Lucy. And all of them are a huge part of my upbringing, so I just wanted to mention them. And also in middle school, I met Mark, and we didn't start dating until high school, but we've known each other for a really long time. So in my childhood, I was very fun and social, kind of like Lydia, and yeah, and but I wasn't very good at academics. I struggled to turn in homework. I was just kind of a space case. I was out, you know, picking flowers and doing cartwheels, and so I struggled a lot. And I think there was so much happening with my family. I think stuff just kind of went under the rug a little bit. So when I got to high school, or actually I'll step back. In elementary school, there was 2 girls who came from the high school, and they were just talking about high school classes that you could take. And I remember this. I was sitting there, and for some reason I locked in and paid attention, which I rarely did. And they were talking about anatomy and physiology. That was one of their classes. And I don't know why, but I just was like, this is really, really cool. I think I want to take that when I'm in high school. I was in like 4th grade. And so I got to high school, and I did take that class, and I loved it. And I took chemistry and biology. I took all of the courses. But again, I struggled academically. I graduated high school with a 2.4 GPA. And a counselor brought me in, and I had just started dating Mark. And the counselor said, well, Jeannie, what's your plan for, when you graduate high school? And I kind of looked at her and I'm like, I don't know. I think maybe, and I thought about it, I'm like, well, Mark's going to go to college. I'm going to go to college. And she's like, I don't think so. You're definitely not going to get into college. I'm like, why? Well, you have a 2.4 GPA. And I'm like, okay. Well, what's your plan B? And I'm like, I don't have a plan B. So I was very determined, and Mark kind of helped me out to just, get really good grades my last 2 years. And he kind of brought a purpose to my life. I really wanted to be a mom, and I wanted to get married and have a stable life, one unlike my childhood. I love my childhood, but I just wanted something different. And he then broke up with me. And I was devastated, and I was like, this was the guy I wanted to marry, and now he's gone. So that was kind of a bummer, but I ended up getting recruited for diving at UW River Falls. And I took that quick because I'm like, this is my end to get into college. And I went into college, and I did great. I had a 3.6. My first, my first year or two, and I did diving, and I liked it, but I remember sitting in the diving well at, I think it was like UW Oshkosh, something really far off, nobody really knows about it, and we were sitting in there, and this woman just said, oh my gosh, this is like my goal in life. I made it. This is it. I love this. I'm so happy. And she's like, isn't this just wonderful? And I thought at that moment, I'm like, no, this is nothing I want to do. Like, why am I sitting here in this diving well? Like, I don't want to do diving. And I was coaching gymnastics at UWRF. I was coaching the high school and club team. And I really just loved that. I loved the gymnastics. I missed it. So I called up the coach at Eau Claire, and I asked her, can I try out? I think I want to get back into gymnastics. And she said, sure, what's your skill set? And we went through it all, and she said, yep, come on up. And so I kind of took a leap of faith, and I went to Eau Claire, and I met back up with Mark, and we started dating again, so that was great. And then I was in physical and health education for a while, and I did some student teaching at River Falls, and I didn't like it. I loved the kids. I was a camp counselor growing up. I did lots of coaching with kids, and I don't know, something was like, I cannot be a teacher. And so I went to Eau Claire, and I became a kinesiology major, which is the study of human movement. So it's kind of cardiac rehab. What was I going to do with that? I had no clue. I just wanted to finish college and get a degree. So I did gymnastics for 2 years. I tore my ACL, and then I needed to find a full-time job to pay for my last semester of college, and that's where Harmon Solutions came in. So I worked at this insurance claims place, and it was great. It was great money. I loved it. Wasn't going to be my career, but I worked there for a while, and Pastor Bob always thanks me for giving his daughter Katie a job there. So do I. Yeah, but kind of how I've talked about all these certain pieces and people that have come out of nowhere, I really feel like that's guiding me and placing them in certain spots. I don't even know how I got that job, you know, but so I don't think that was me getting it. I think that was God kind of winding His ways in. And from there, let's see what else I got here. I did a lot of personal training, and I worked with special populations, so people that had cardiac issues, and I kind of fell in love with that population. It was really fun to specialize in, and I ended up job shadowing in L&D and the NICU and in a cardiac unit for nursing, because I kind of thought about going for nursing, but I wasn't sure. And I decided to finish my degree and kind of slowly get into that field. And I remember I was a ballet total fitness trainer, and I was at Target, and this man saw I had a ballet total fitness shirt on, and he just said, "Hey, can I ask you a couple questions?" And I'm like, "Sure, that's fine." And he started talking about his daughter in the hospital, and it had nothing to do with personal training. It had nothing to do with anything. I think he just needed somebody to talk to, and thought it was a good conversation starter. And so I talked to him for like a good half hour about his sick child, and I think I was able to comfort him a little bit as a stranger and just give him a little bit of hope. And we talked about God, and I don't know, it was just a very interesting connection that I made. And from there, I just felt like I kind of looked out for these, and I had a lot of different connections where I don't know, I think God's given me this sense of like I can read people really well, and I sometimes can say the right things. I can always say the wrong things too. But I think sometimes I can connect with my patients really well with just a moment of clarity for them, maybe. So with that, I started on a cardiac unit at Abbott, and I worked as an op tech, and I really loved doing blood draws, and I loved working with post-op cardiac patients. We'd get them up and we'd walk and we'd talk about their life, and just really, I don't know, we had really good conversation. I learned about the Battle of the Bulge, and I learned about a lot of Vietnam stuff just from my patients. And it was funny, it's not really funny, but you notice how young you are when someone says, "Oh, you know, do you remember this in history?" And I'm like, "Oh gosh, yeah, I do." You know, and then you start talking to them about it, and you're listening, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, that's just amazing." And then you get home and you're like, "Oh, okay, I need to Google this." And then the next day you can come back and talk to them about it once you've Googled what it is. So it was kind of fun. But, so I ended up, you know, I worked there for 5 years, and I went back to school for nursing, and I was really excited because I was going to get in, I think, in 2013, and then I ended up working nights, and I tried to take this 16-week course into 6 weeks, and it was just a terrible idea, and I failed the class. And so that pushed me back a whole year. But with pushing me back a whole year, it gave me the opportunity to meet one of my best friends, Hannah. And Hannah and me took all of our CBTC, our nursing courses, together, and we really helped each other through that time. Hannah and me had our kids the same time. So she has a little girl the same age as Lydia, and then she has a little boy the same age as Charlotte, almost. And I remember my water broke today, last year, it's the anniversary today, and I remember feeling this complete loss of control. You know, I'm a part-time stay-at-home mom too, and so me and Lydia spent every single day together, you know, morning to night, and that was just our life, you know, and we were preparing for this little baby in July, and my water broke today, April 14th, and I'm sitting in this hospital bed, you know, they're telling me all this stuff about how, you know, your baby may not come out breathing, you might have to resuscitate her, you know, she could have this, long-term effects. I mean, they give you kind of the full, this is the worst.
That's not a good idea.
You know, I know. That's what I said. But they do make you prepared for it because it is scary. I mean, you know, your baby comes out very small and black and blue, and you know, they don't cry usually.
How many weeks?
She was 20. My water broke 27 weeks. She was born at 28 weeks. So we just got to our third trimester when I had her. So, but yeah, I remember my water breaking and sitting in the hospital, and it took me a few days to calm my nerves, and I remember calling Hannah and just saying, how did this happen? I don't have any infections, I'm not, you know, doing anything, I'm not doing drugs, I'm not, you know, like, there's no reason. And she just said, you know, Jamie, this is, this is God telling you that you aren't in control. You have no control. You know, He's in full control, so you just gotta let it go and give Him the control, because you're fighting with Him and you don't have control over this. So she kind of gave me a little clarity at that moment, and I said, okay, I don't. And that was just a blessing to have her there, and I think if I didn't fail that class, and, you know, I wouldn't have met her. So I just think all these little things kind of come, you know, in and out of your life, and I think they're all supposed to happen that way. So with that, I also met Katie. Katie was another nursing gal, and she helped me get my job at United. I went to an open house at Alina. I already worked for Alina, but I went to their open job fair, and I searched out the manager on 33, and I found her, and I gave her my resume, and I gave her this little spiel of how I've done work for 5 years, and I'd be really good at the job. She's like, okay, that's great, we'll call you. And then I said, by the way, do you know Katie? And she's like, I do. And I'm like, well, I'm her best friend. And then she's like, okay, let's go interview. You know, so I dropped names too. And she hired me on the spot, which was awesome. And so I've been a cardiac nurse now for 3.5 years. It'll be 4 in July, but I've taken off 6 months for Lydia's and 9 months for Charlotte's. It was, I don't know, I've always loved cardiac, but after this 9 months at home with the kids and trying to get myself back up to where I was, it was a very traumatic event for me. I came back and I just had this overwhelming sense of I don't know if cardiac's my gig anymore. You know, and our population has changed a little bit, so it's a little more med surge and less cardiac patients. But I've just been soul searching a little bit and praying on what I need to do next, and I really think I need to go into labor and delivery or the NICU or something for what I went through. I really enjoyed my antepartum nurses. That's when my water broke and I was in the hospital for 11 days. They really were there for you through, I mean, you go crazy sitting in bed for 11 days and just worrying about everything that could happen. And they really were strong people there. So, I don't know, I've kind of been thinking about going that route, but I don't know. But I know nursing is where I want to be, for sure. So, and the other big thing about my career is I'm also a stay-at-home mom, and that's really, really important to me, and it's really hard to be a stay-at-home mom because you're at the soul of their, like, you teach them everything, you know, and I want my kids to be kind and generous and honest and just, you know, open to helping other people like I do, and, you know, be compassionate, and I think they will be that, but if they don't turn out to be that, then it's on me. So, not good. No. Yeah. So I don't know. I think, yeah, that's kind of me. And yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when was Mark fortunate enough to get back with you?
That was our second year in college, I believe.
We want to hear about it.
Well, actually, it's kind of funny.
Just kidding.
No. No, I actually called him for a ride up to a party in St. Cloud. So I had no intention of, I thought we were done forever, and I had no intention of getting back together with him at that point. But I was like, well, he's coming from Eau Claire, so he has to drive by River Falls, so maybe he'll pick me up. And so he did, and then we sat in his blue truck and with Mike Gore, and we just talked for like an hour on the ride up there. And then the next day we're like, I think we should start dating again. And we did.
Nothing more romantic than a 3-person car ride.
I know.
I know.
If you know the guy who's riding in there.
He's a youth. But
I can remember
yeah.
at your grad party, you guys were broke up, and we
Yeah.
went to the party, and then Bud says, or her dad, he goes, Jamie's gonna have to work really hard to get together with Mark.
I know, my dad loved Mark. And then when I said he broke up with me, he's like, I hate Mark.
Good answer.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Mark was too young and not interested in marrying anybody, but I was definitely in high school. It's like, I'm ready. But we weren't quite there yet. But and we didn't get married until we were 28. So, yeah. But
So how would you make this shift if you think you want to be in a I want to say neonatal nest,
Yeah.
right? But if you want to be doing something more with children, how do you make that shift? Do you have to go to school again?
No.
Or?
It's actually fairly easy because when you're a cardiac nurse, you have a really good skill set for assessment. And labor and delivery is obviously delivering a baby and making sure the baby is safe, but there's a whole special population with labor and delivery. Like mine, you know, I was having an early baby, but some people have heart disease, some people have diabetes, you know. So they actually really like cardiac nurses to switch over to labor and delivery because we're good at reading cardiac strips and assessing really well. So I just need to find a job that's open that's a 0.6 or below an evening shift. So I just, you know, I haven't found the perfect job yet. I don't want to go into nights again. That's really difficult. But but I'd like to, I don't know, I just have to wait till the job opens up and then apply and see if I'm at the top of bidding process.
What do you mean by .6 or above?
Oh, so it's a full-time nurse is considered .8, and that's 8 shifts every 2 weeks. So I'm a .5, so I work 5 shifts every 2 weeks. So I work Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then I work 2 other shifts that are just random during the
12-hour
week.
shifts or?
8-hour shifts.
Oh.
Yep. So I work 3 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. So.
Are those union terms or what?
Yeah. So I'm. Yeah. So I'm with Minnesota Nursing Association, the MNA. We're union based with Alina, and it's our contract year. So everyone's very nervous to strike again, because I was in the strike the previous year, or 3 years ago. But yeah, there's 8-hour shifts. You can work 7 to 7:30, or you can work 3 to 11:30, or you can work 11 to 7:30 a.m. And then they throw in the 12 hours, which are usually 7 a.m. to 7 p. or 7 p. to 7 a. So
Every 2 weeks.
yeah, yep. And then they usually get every third weekend, which is super nice, which I would love to get, because every other weekend working is difficult. You know, you don't get a lot of time with your family on weekends. Although the evening shift is nice because I do get that morning. We usually do a big breakfast on Saturday if we went shopping the night before. But yeah, so I mean, there's many different routes you can take as a nurse, and I love that about it. So I could go to labor and delivery and not like it at all, and I could switch, you know, to something else. And you know, my Diane, my stepmom, she introduced me into the it's actually neonatal intensive care unit, because she's a nurse practitioner there at Abbott, or at Minneapolis Children's. And so she kind of brought me in, and she's always telling me stuff about NICU babies, probably a total HIPAA violation, but you know, she doesn't tell me their names or anything. But so I've known a lot about the NICU before I ever had Charlotte, which helped and didn't help too.
I know one thing about it. I had a sister-in-law who was a NICU nurse at St. John's forever, and then down in she started out in Rochester. But what she saw, the trend at that, when this was some years ago, was she was getting really bored at St. John's because all of the really sick babies went to Children's.
Yeah.
And so she had no challenges anymore. So
yeah,
that's one thing I know.
Yeah, they have yeah, well, St. John's Hospital, they have kids that are 28 weeks gestation and above. So they're what they call feeder growers usually. They don't have like significant complications. They're just there to basically learn how to eat and go home. Children's Hospital, they take 24 weeks and above. And those babies, they're on life support. You know, you don't start feeding a baby until they're, 34, 36 weeks. So their whole first month or two is just basically growing and getting their organs into, you know, a level where they would have been if they were outside at a newborn. So, and that's kind of how Charlotte was. Actually, she was very bad respiratory-wise. They tried her on CPAP for 4 hours maybe, or 6, I think. And then she just wasn't breathing well enough, so they intubated her. And intubation is a tube down the throat and on a ventilator. So she was on that for, Mark? like
Well, she
a
was-
week.
She was intubated when she was born, and
Yeah.
they try, they wanna get the tube out of her as soon as possible because there's risk of infection and whatnot, so they're showing signs that they're ready, they'll try. So I think it was, you lose track of time, but
Yeah.
4 to 6 days in, maybe a week in, where
Yeah.
they extubated, put her
Yeah.
on CPAP, and I think she made it half a day.
Yeah. But me and Mark were sitting next to her, and our nurse Kelly, one of her primary nurses, she noticed that, she's kind of started to fall asleep and stop breathing, and I think her respiratory rate went down to 8 and her heart rate went down to 12, and they begged her and they called in for support. So she kind of coded a little bit. So they revived her though, and I don't know why, but I feel like me and Mark just kind of, I don't know, it wasn't scary really, because I just felt like we were just kind of like, oh, it's gonna be fine.
Probably in shock.
She's gonna make it. Probably.
And your bystanders.
Yeah, I mean,
Alarms sound,
it's
and I
not
swear
fun.
20 people run to the room. I mean,
Yeah.
Oh, no.
it's unbelievable.
And I've been in codes, as a nurse, so I knew exactly what was going on, and I just, and my nurse looked at us like, uh-oh, this is not good, and she's just so little, and, so then they realized, okay, I think she's not ready, we need to re-intubate her. So they re-intubated her, and, then she did pretty good after that. And then once they extubated her, though, took it out, she didn't need oxygen or anything after that.
Explain what a CPAP is for a child as small as she was.
Oh, it's, so a CPAP basically, just helps to, blow in the air.
And how do you attach that to a child that small?
Oh, it's the same as if you were, like if you use a CPAP at night, it's just a little mask that you put on. It's the same thing as an adult, but the mask, I should have brought it. It's like this big.
It's gotta be tiny.
Yeah, super tiny.
Okay.
And their blood pressure monitor, cups that big. I should have brought all of that, sorry.
We should have brought her little diaper.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
Well, maybe I'll bring it next week if you guys are
Yeah,
here.
that would be great.
So, yeah, I'll bring all of that. I thought about it, but kids are taking my brain away. Yeah.
Has she needed any, further surgeries for anything?
So when we were at home, I realized that she had this small little hole, kind of near her anus, and so I went to worst case scenario, oh gosh, her spinal cord's open, she's gonna be paralyzed, and I mean, that was just,
There you go.
where you go at that point. So we went in and, she went into a neurologist. They said, no, this has nothing to do with spinal cord. This is a GI issue. So then we went to GI, and that's gastro. And they said that it was called an anal fistula. So it's just a little connection that goes to her colon. So she did have to go under surgery for that. I think she was 4 months old at the time. And I was really scared. They say most NICU moms have PTSD after it, and I 100% had that morning, because I was like, I don't know, I just felt out of body, like, oh my gosh, she's gonna end up getting intubated, and she's gonna have a trach for the rest of her life, and I went worst case scenario again. And she did have a little bit of difficulty coming out of anesthesia, but then once they took the tube out, she was fine, and we still up overnight, and she did great. So that's the only surgery that she has had, but other than that, she really hasn't needed anything past, we just have to keep her really in a bubble for a while, because when babies are born, early they get damaged lungs. And so their lungs regenerate, but it takes about 2 years to fully. So if they get RSV or if they get the flu within those 2 years, it can damage their lungs fully. So they may end up with asthma, other lung issues. And, asthma's okay, but if we can prevent that, it would be great. So, and she's been pretty good so far. So, she has lots of follow-up appointments, eyes. Babies who are born that early, they have to go through multiple eye tests because their retinas aren't grown in yet. So they start growing. Sometimes they're because they see light and they're not supposed to, their retinas will overgrow and then it can cause blindness. But they have laser treatments for that early on when they're in hospital, but she didn't. She had one little instant where it was showing a little bit of overgrowth, and then the next week they checked her again and it was normal. So that was great. Yeah. But when we were, one other thing I remember, I went into, my water broke and I was in there for 11 days, and I had my girlfriend come over and bring me food, and I got a 30-minute ride outside on a wheelchair a day. So we went outside and we were eating lunch or dinner, and I started feeling pains, and I'm like, I think I need to go inside. This was at like 6, went down. We got back up at 6:25. I just said, okay, you can leave. I sent her off her way, and then I was in like 10 out of 10 pain, labor pain. I called the nurse in, and she had a student nurse, and I was in labor at that moment. So I think we called Luann and said, you gotta take Lydia.
We just got rid of her.
Yeah, we just got rid of her. They were like just exchanged in the car. And that was really, really scary, because I only kept her in for a week, so I was pretty bummed about that.
To get off the subject.
Oh yeah.
What advice would you give to your 2 daughters? What life advice would you give to them?
I think one of my big things is, there's a lot of stuff that happens in your life that you have no control of, obviously. But I'm trying to think of how to say it. You can't help what other people say or what happens, but you can change your reaction to it. And I think that's huge, because I've learned growing up there's been a lot of kind of turmoil with a lot of different family members, and I've just learned to react differently and be positive and forgiveness. When we wrote our vows, I put forgiveness in there, because I've had to forgive a lot of people in my life, and I think that's just a huge thing. Everyone's going to make mistakes, and Lydia makes mistakes every day. I make mistakes every day. Charlotte, she's kind of little, but she doesn't make too many mistakes. She will.
Yeah, she's young.
She bonks her head once in a while. That's a mistake, but just to forgive yourself. This past year, my dad had some mental health issues, and I've helped him through that. And I think coping mechanisms are huge in a person's life, and I don't think my dad grew up with any coping mechanisms. He kind of just said, tough it up, go to the next thing, and I think that really was not good for him. I think it kind of came to a halt, and he really couldn't go on at that point. So I think I'm going to teach them some really good coping stuff, I already teach her how to breathe. If she's going through something and she's crying, I just say, okay, take some deep breaths, you know. She'll go. It's pretty cute.
So cute, because he listens and he does it.
Yeah. Just stress. I think our life is stressful. My job is stressful. But if you can learn how to combat that stress to a certain extent and learn how to cope through it, I think that's what I'll try to give away to my kids. So, yeah. But,
Well, I have some.
yeah, go ahead.
Or you should, she's probably too modest to say this, but when you talk about the mom piece, she, you know, we were in there for 77 days, and, you know, some people don't have the luxury. We thankfully, right, your mortgage payment doesn't go away, all your bills don't go away. Thankfully, you know, Jamie was able to take extended period of time off, but 77 days she held sharp, you know, it doesn't seem like it when they're born that young that they know you're there, but they do. And she held, you know, every day for, I don't know how many hours. We really should have started it. But
well,
the
for the
couldn't
2
believe it,
weeks,
and when she's on the innovator, I mean, it's job to, you got 3 or 4 people that have to unhook, you know.
Oh, yeah, I know.
And she said, well, I'm not,
And
you
they've
know, I'm
proven
going to hold her
that
every day. And,
that makes a big difference in the recovery.
Yeah.
She won an award for that.
I did.
Amy did when she was taking care of Charlotte in the hospital.
Yeah.
They do.
Did you win a book or something?
Yeah. They do Kangaroo-a-thon, it's called, every May, and you basically track how many times you hold your baby and how many hours. And I think for the 2-week period, I think I held her 80 hours total, and that was the top of everybody. So I got a book, and they wrote in the book, and yeah. So I won the book award.
But I think that's a big part of why she's, you know, doing so well now. It was every day for you know, almost 3 months, and it wasn't you know,
Well, we're supposed to be inside where it's nice and warm and cozy.
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
Yeah. And you know, I think that was kind of something I knew I could do for her because, you know, we didn't get to hold her for 3 days after she was born, which is such a weird experience if you've had kids. It's like, you know, you have this baby and it's inside of you and now you get to hold it, whereas this baby's inside of you and it's now gone and you don't get to hold it. It's like, it's just weird. Very weird feeling. So that was really hard, but one thing I could do was pump milk for her, and I over pumped a lot of milk. I would get like 80 ounces a day plus. It was bad. I mean, it was good, but now I have to donate my milk to somebody. Yeah, and I actually have a girlfriend who has a baby in the NICU right now. Her water broke at 26 weeks and had her baby at 27. So I've actually been a really good resource. I went and got coffee with her the other day. So, you know, I get to be there for her now when I had people there for me, which was really nice. And everybody here at Cross, I mean, making food and praying. I think prayer has been unbelievable for Charlotte and me. And actually I'm getting off topic, but during my C-section, I was so frightened. I was just like sobbing and like, you know, people probably thought I was crazy. But the 2 nurses followed me the whole way into the OR, and Mark was going to the bathroom. When they said we need to do an emergency C-section, Mark walked out and was like, I gotta go pee quick. So I was in the OR room, and he was getting like scrubbed up, and And no one, I felt like no one was there. Like, you people are moving me around, you're, you know, giving me meds, I'm feeling terrible. And I just said, if anybody, like, believes in God, can you maybe say a prayer to yourself? And I kind of was like, that's so weird to ask, but, and then the two nurses that were following me, they came up and we all said a prayer together, which was really nice, before they took her out. So that was really comforting. Yeah, so, I don't know, I feel like through this has been just the worst year, but it's also been the best year, too. I mean, we got a new house and a new baby that's doing great. Yeah.
Good insurance.
Huh? And phenomenal insurance.
Nurses fought for that insurance, and
Yeah.
it was done January of this year.
Yep.
So
it's, yeah, we went on strike to save this insurance. And unfortunately we didn't save it, but it was saved through Charlotte. So her bill was, and my bill together, I think was close to $775,000. So almost $1 million. Yeah, so when you see that and you have, you know, really great insurance, it's amazing. So it saved us a lot. Yeah.
I'd say the other thing is, with Jamie being a nurse, she was really good talking to the doctors. Sometimes, you know, we felt like she just needed more time. We didn't want to shortcut anything, and that required you to kind of push back or go against advice that doctors are giving you.
Yeah.
And we had to do that a handful of times where you're disagreeing with someone that's very experienced, but we just wanted her to kind of, you know, heal on her own, like the body is kind of meant to do. And that was, you know, I can't, science and stuff, I'm not good at that, right? So,
it did,
she was very good when we had to, you know, both of us would talk some, but she was very good being on the same wavelength with the doctors, and especially when it was kind of going against at times what they
just kick in
Yeah.
for women.
I know.
They'll kill.
Well, yeah, and I'm not a huge, like, I was never really outspoken with doctors or nurses, but I remember this one doctor saying, well, I don't put stuff on a silver platter and just give it to you to choose. And I was like, that's exactly what you do. I was very mean, and I'm like, yes. So yeah, being a nurse has helped significantly, and with just my family and my grandma, just having that extra knowledge about, you know, medication errors and, you know, stuff like that. They wanted to get her on long-term diuretics for her lungs because she had some lung issues, and I know the effects of that possible, and they're like, no, there's no effects at all. And I'm like, how are you saying that? Like, yes, there is, you know. And, yeah, so it was a little nerve-wracking. I don't know what parents do when they don't have that knowledge. Yeah, I think, I don't know, it's kind of frightening, but
I know you're gonna, the other thing, maybe you said this at the beginning, but, you know, our support group was so good during all of it too.
Yeah.
My parents, Brooke did the food, Bob and Amy were there, Bob was there for the surgery, you know, and
yeah.
It was just, really good.
Yeah, I knowing you were coming, you know, I mean, you came a ton, you even wrote a little note, you know, I missed you, Jamie, but, you know, me and Charlotte had a good time. It's just super comforting to know people are coming and, you know, being there for me and being there for Charlotte, and, yeah, I know people were bringing a lot behind our, you know, we can't see it, but we can see it in her and feel it, so thank you all very much.
Thank you, Jamie. one of the big surprises in my ministry was seeing Charlotte the day of her baptism, because the last day that I had seen her in the hospital, she was a peanut and tiny still. Before, I mean, even with going home in the next few days. And when Mark and Jamie came up to the baptismal font with this little girl, I realized she had cheeks, which she didn't have in the hospital. But I mean, you know, she looked like a little girl instead of, you know, a tiny, tiny baby that was early, you know, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
So my calling is one of the highlights of the year for many of us, and what a fantastic way to end this series of presentations with what you've shared with us today. And sometimes what really strikes me is the diversity of our callings. I mean, last week Paul Schaefer, and before that, you know, somebody else. Now, we've heard from other nurses today. I mean, you know, to this point. But I think one of the things that struck me today, when you're talking about, you're not sure cardiac is for you anymore. Martin Luther talks about how our callings change at different points in life, and that's God at work responding to our neighbor's needs as well as our own situation. And the fact that you have lived through what other parents will be living through is huge, and it's why some people do go into the profession that they're in, or make a change into a profession. I mean, you know, you were pretty upfront today about how God is at work in your life, and there was a consistency there, I think many of us would say, with, you know, you were led this way then, and you're being led another way now, perhaps, and that's a prayerful decision for you and Mark to make. The other thing I'm aware of is how your calling changed, and so did Wayne and Luann's calling change with this baby, and all of the other family, like Diane and the others in your family, and that's the way God intends for it to be as well. When there's a need, people step up. It's not always within the family. Sometimes it's at John Glenn School or the neighbors down the block or whatever. But this is why we share about our callings, because of this great diversity and the many opportunities and challenges. And that you've reminded us of that again today is a great thing. Thank you. So this was the last class in this academic year. On Easter Sunday, we don't have classes. Most of us are in church long enough, right, Katie? We got done on Easter Sunday. We got breakfast instead. And then the Sunday after that, I have no idea what's planned, but it's not class. So,
don't know.
look forward to the fall, and the Board of Education is already at work on that fall schedule. Sharon?
I was
say
just
something?
noticing she bought the monkey.
Yeah,
Thank
sorry.
you.
Yeah. That was the other thing I thought, all those pictures, have no idea
Yeah.
how big that bear is.
Yeah, so this is how big the bear is.
Okay.
Wow, she was that small.
Yeah.
Bob,
Mark?
I'd like to say one thing about the call. Somebody asked me one time if I wanted to do this, and I said, no, I don't think that's my bag. I thought, you know, a calling was a born-again thing. You walked around with a halo over your head.
Right.
That wasn't me.
Like the pastor, right?
So I couldn't do this. I got to thinking about it, and I thought, well, this is more like a biography. And when Bob got up and gave his speech that day, that was just exactly what I was thinking. He did a terrific job, and these two guys were terrific, and this gal was terrific. That is the calling. That's the kind of calling.
Yep.
And I wish I would have done it now. But,
Always next year, Mark.
no, you're not going to be here.
But everybody else in this room will be here.
You can watch it online.
We're listening.
We know.
Yeah, we can record it.
Yeah, hey, Mark,
You can do
we'll
it.
watch it online.
All right.
Well, thank you all for coming today.
Thank you. Great job.
Thanks, Jason. That was wonderful. Appreciate it very
Thanks.
much. Thank you.
Thank you.